Before AGT even happened, the world had no clue about this Filipino boy's real financial life. Even his neighbors in Los Angeles Airbnb didn't know. They saw a small body, innocent face, cheap hoodie, cheap backpack from Manila, and they assumed he was just another regular foreign audition kid who saved coins for years to chase a dream. But deep inside, this kid was literally one of the youngest Filipino tech multi-millionaires ever. He never told anyone, because money was never his identity. His parents taught him that if people know you have millions, then all applause becomes extremely suspicious, and every compliment becomes highly questionable. His family always protected him from that type of fake energy. His father told him before he flew to USA, while packing his guitar, "Son, when the world judges you, may they judge your soul, not your bank account." And the boy took that sentence like oxygen. It stayed in his chest like a command from God. So when he decided to audition for AGT, he made his family promise no luxury clothing, no private jets, no Rolex, no designer items visible. He wanted to step on that stage in front of Simon Cowell as a real singer, not a rich kid gimmick. He wanted to earn respect with talent, not money. And that is why episode 1 is extremely different from every AGT boy story before. Because nobody in the world knew they were watching a multi-millionaire who was purposely acting like a normal middle-class quiet Filipino kid. When he landed in LAX, he didn't even call an SUV or private driver. He took an Uber X. He refused first-class hotel suites and instead stayed in a very basic small Airbnb near Koreatown. He wanted to feel USA normal air, USA normal street energy. He wanted to feel grounded like every regular dreamer. He wanted to earn everything authentically. And he kept repeating inside himself, "If I am good, nobody can deny me. If I am not good, I do not deserve anything." That is why AGT for him was not a game show. It was his identity test. On rehearsal day backstage, before the actual performance taping, people naturally assumed he was a shy, poor Filipino kid. But he never corrected anyone. Because he wanted to see pure behavior. He wanted to see how humans treat someone who looks like they have nothing. The production crew instantly liked him because he was unbelievably polite. He said sorry for every little thing. He said thank you even for small water bottles. Other contestants almost felt protective over him because he looked like someone who struggled his entire life. Little did they know this boy could literally buy every guitar in the entire building 30 times. But he never would. Because buying things means nothing when there is no soul behind it. Some contestants were flexing loud. Some were talking about brand deals, TikTok fame, millions of followers. Some were trying to intimidate each other. But this Filipino kid sat quietly with his guitar, humming Hotel California, soft under his breath, thinking about his grandfather who passed away 2 years ago. His grandfather was the one who told him the meaning of real music when he was only 4 years old. His grandfather said, "Talent is a gift from God, money is just a temporary visitor." And that one sentence built his entire personality forever. So backstage, before judges, before cameras, before lights, he whispered inside himself, "Lolo, I will sing this for you. Not for fame, not for money, not for viral, for you." When he stepped onto the AGT stage, silence fell heavier than any applause. The audience expected a timid audition, maybe a soft attempt at a popular song, maybe a nervous smile. Simon Cowell leaned forward, curious, but skeptical, like every judge always is when a quiet kid walks in from overseas. The kid's small frame carried a giant aura of calm confidence. He didn't speak much. When Simon finally asked, "Why AGT?" the boy looked straight at him, eyes steady, and said, "Because I want someone to believe in my voice, not my money." The audience shifted uncomfortably. A few whispered. They had no idea he was hiding millions behind that quiet hoodie, no idea that every gesture, every word, was calculated to show pure authenticity. Then he lifted his guitar, strummed the first chord of Hotel California, and the energy of the room changed instantly. It was as if time slowed down. The notes didn't just sound correct, they transported the crowd back to 1977. The tone, the sustain, the emotional depth, it was the Eagles, but alive and new, coming from a tenacious young soul who understood the weight of music in life. Sophia's hand flew to her mouth. The other judges froze. Even the audience, initially skeptical, couldn't blink. Tears began to glisten in the front row, under the stage lights, almost spontaneously. Within 40 seconds, it was clear, this wasn't just a good performance. This was transformative. The boy's voice didn't merely mimic Eagles, it embodied their spirit. Every note carried longing, nostalgia, love, and loss. Every guitar pluck resonated with honesty, with lived experience, with reverence for something larger than himself. It wasn't a performance to impress, it was a performance to honor his grandfather, his roots, and the power of music itself. Cameras cut to Simon, whose face remained stone still, as if processing a revelation. He had judged countless auditions, some incredible, some lackluster, some talented, some flashy. But he had never witnessed this level of maturity, this profound understanding, in such a young performer. It wasn't about the song, it was about conveying a life story without saying a single word. By the final bridge, Simon's arms were crossed, his jaw tight. His eyes betrayed the storm of emotion he never intended to show publicly. Near the long sustained note, the one Don Henley hit rarely and beautifully, the boy reached deep into his chest and produced a note that floated and lingered, seemingly suspended in midair. Simon's eyes watered. Judges whispered to each other, some choking back emotion. Audience members wiped tears as if trying to hold on to composure. The energy in the theater shifted from curiosity to awe. When the performance ended, the room was silent for a heartbeat before erupting into thunderous applause. Simon, usually sharp and sarcastic, simply nodded and said, "How did you learn to do that?" The boy looked modest, almost shy, and said softly, "Music saved me from losing myself in money." That single sentence cut deeper than any critique or praise. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't a humble brag. It was a confession of truth. He didn't need wealth to define him. The audience sensed it. The judges felt it. Every camera in the theater captured that rare human moment where talent met soul. By the time they brought him backstage, people were still whispering. Crew members approached, shaking their heads, some crying quietly. Other contestants, who had been skeptical at first, were humbled. This was not competition, this was revelation. Simon later admitted in the green room that he hadn't expected this, that he almost forgot to judge because he was watching a young artist speaking straight to the heart of America, without a single word about money, fame, or status. The Filipino boy had done the impossible. He had made everyone forget who he was, only to remember the music, the passion, and the purity of human talent. And in that moment, every eye in the theater knew something historic had just happened. The moment Howie Mandel hit the golden buzzer, the theater erupted in a way no one could have predicted. Gold confetti rained down like a waterfall of light, and the audience screamed, stood, and cried all at once. The Filipino boy dropped to his knees, tears streaming freely down his face, not from the flash of cameras or the roar of applause, but from something far deeper. For the first time in his life, someone had acknowledged his talent purely, without any judgment tied to wealth or status. He had hidden millions, yet it didn't matter. His journey to that stage had been about proving his soul, and now, in front of the world, that proof was undeniable. Howie, still grinning, waved the golden buzzer with an almost uncontainable excitement, saying, "Finally. Someone who reminds us what this show is really about." Simon nodded silently nearby, eyes still glossy, knowing the impact of that moment would ripple far beyond AGT. The judges' reactions, combined with the emotional outpouring from the crowd, turned the performance into an instant historical marker for the show. Cameras panned over fellow contestants, some of whom were visibly shaking, overwhelmed not by competition, but by the purity of the kid's artistry. The boy's voice, the performance, and now the recognition all merged into one moment that would never be forgotten. Backstage, the atmosphere was chaotic but intimate. Crew members, producers, and even other contestants crowded around, hugging him, patting his shoulder, wiping tears. Reporters, who had expected the usual viral story of a struggling immigrant kid, suddenly realized they were witnessing a more complex narrative. A child prodigy, a humble soul, a hidden multi-millionaire, and above all, a genuine artist. When asked about his background, he hesitated. Then, softly, almost shyly, he said, "I'm actually one of the youngest self-made tech millionaires in the Philippines. But I came here to AGT because I want people to see my voice first, not my net worth." Gasps echoed in the green room. Some producers dropped their jaws. Contestants who had assumed he was just another hopeful singer looked at him with newfound respect, realizing that wealth had never influenced the purity of his performance. It was a bold declaration, not of pride, but of principle. He had mastered humility in a world obsessed with status. Within hours, the clips were trending worldwide. USA Today, CNN, and entertainment channels ran highlights. Social media went into overdrive. TikTok exploded with reactions, with millions posting hashtag Filipino Eagle and hashtag Hotel California AGT. Fans analyzed every note, every guitar pluck, every subtle expression, praising the boy not just for technical brilliance but for emotional authenticity. Even Simon Cowell appeared on talk shows, describing how the kid changed the energy of AGT forever. Commentators marveled at the paradox. One of the wealthiest contestants had deliberately hidden his fortune to prove that true artistry is measured by heart, not bank account. People across the Philippines celebrated him as a national pride, while American audiences were captivated by the story of humility and talent transcending expectation. Music labels, already scouting contestants for weeks, began making immediate offers, anticipating that this boy was not just a viral sensation but a generational talent. Viral clips surpassed record engagement numbers for AGT, setting a new standard for auditions in the show's history. By the end of the day, the Filipino boy was more than a contestant, he had become a symbol. A reminder that success doesn't have to be flaunted to be real, that artistry doesn't require wealth to shine, and that humility can coexist with massive achievement. Everywhere, people were calling him the Filipino Eagle, not just for the Eagles song that made him famous, but for the soaring quality of his voice, his heart, and the way he carried himself on the world stage. For a moment, the narrative of AGT shifted. It wasn't about drama, gimmicks, or flashy performances. It was about the rare, unfiltered magic that occurs when talent meets sincerity. And in that moment, the world understood that this boy had not only sung Hotel California, he had sung the truth of his life, and it resonated louder than any applause could ever measure.